Hello, world, and welcome back to We the People, an American pod show. Tonight, we have Albert Lee with us, and he is running for Oregon's 3rd District in Congress. Welcome, Albert Lee.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. How you doing, man?
You know, I'm doing all right. I'm sorry I got here late.
Hey, no biggie.
Yeah.
No biggie. So, man, let's just go right into this, asking the hard questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, where are you from?
That is a hard question. So I'll start off from the beginning. I was born in South Korea.
Okay.
That's where my African-American Army dad met my Korean mom during the Vietnam War.
Right.
I grew up mainly in St. Louis, but really kind of bounced around through the Midwest and have lived a lot of different places in the States.
In the States.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, nice. So, why are you running for Congress?
Even bigger question.
Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, first of all, I believe that democracy requires choice, and here in the 3rd District, we simply haven't had that choice in over a generation.
Okay.
Now, we face a series of crises here in this district, across the country and around the world that require bold action now, and not just inspirational and aspirational words.
Right.
And I believe in the basic tenets of the party when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right.
I think that it is time that we uplift some new voices
Okay.
from some other backgrounds, from
Right.
some other lived experiences, to represent us here in the most diverse district of our state.
Okay.
Lastly, I think that it's time that we end this oligarchy, this rule by elite career multimillionaire politicians.
Right.
We got to replace them with
Okay.
citizen representatives who know the struggle, who won't take contributions from corporations, and who will truly represent and fight for the people.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
For the people.
for the people.
Hey.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about, man.
Absolutely.
I mean, to me, there's nothing more important than people.
People and planet.
People and planet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Community and the shelter for that community, right? The planet.
Absolutely.
We don't really have a choice. I mean, I guess we could probably take it to the other planets someday.
I think that's just for the 1%.
That's for the 1%.
I
There you
mean,
go.
they can't take us all, right?
Right, right.
So,
Yeah.
you saw Wall-E.
You're right, right. Man, that's a classic.
Yeah,
Good old Disney over there.
yeah.
So how has that been? I mean, getting into running for Congress, is that, like, what made you decide to do that? Like, I mean, I know we asked, why are you doing that? But, like, going back, was there, like, a significant moment where you were, like, you seen something and you were like, all right, I got to take action?
Yes.
What was it that you seen that you were like,
Okay.
I got to step up?
So first of all, I got to tell you, 2015 was the first time that I really got activated by a candidate.
Okay.
And so there was one candidate in 2015 that inspired me. It was the first candidate I ever gave money to because, quite frankly, I looked at politicians as crooks, thieves, and liars.
Okay.
And this one politician, this one candidate, well, he said a lot of things that made a lot of sense to me.
Okay.
And I looked into his history. I saw that he actually had been saying the same things for over 40 years.
Right.
He's been actually doing the same things for over 40 years. And that's kind of hard because you look at politicians and they seem to change their minds and their ideas and their opinions
Right.
depending on which way the wind's blowing.
Okay.
But this guy didn't. And
Gotcha.
so I donated and contributed to him for the first time in my life. My wife contributed to him for the first time. We both started phone banking, canvassing, knocking on doors, things that I never expected myself to do.
Right.
And, well, his name is Bernie Sanders.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Makes sense.
Bernie Sanders activated me and my wife in 2015.
Right.
Now, we'll both know that it didn't go our way in 2016
Right.
with the Democratic National Convention. So at the end of that, I looked at my wife and it's like we invested all this time and effort in this one candidate, and our candidate didn't win. What's next? What's next? And, well, we kind of really listened to what he said. And he said, it's not me, it's us. We all have to take part in this civic duty. We all have to participate within our neighborhoods, within our communities.
Right.
And so we took heed with that.
So proactive.
Proactive, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I started getting involved with the community.
Okay.
I
So did you go out to one of his campaigns then?
Oh, I went.
Or
I went
one
to.
of his-
I went to all four of his rallies that came out.
Rallies, that's the
Yeah.
word I'm looking
I
for.
went to all four of the rallies that were here in Oregon.
Okay.
And I took my daughter
Right.
to a couple of them, including the one down in Salem.
Okay.
But no, so after that 2016 primary,
Right.
we started looking at other things. I started getting involved in the community. So I got involved. I said, police accountability. That's one of the things
Right.
that I'm concerned about. So I found that there was a citizen review committee that you could apply to. So I applied to get on that committee.
Okay.
And then I was appointed by the city council to that 11 panel member body.
Right.
And that body, what it did was effectively citizen appellate review of police action against citizens.
Right.
So when a citizen had an altercation with the police,
Right.
they go to the police, they make a complaint. Typically, the police would say, hey, we didn't do anything wrong. They appeal that. That appeal would then go to the citizen review committee.
Oh, okay.
If it gets vetted properly and whatnot.
Right.
And so that 11 panel member body would take a look at would take a look at the evidence and then come up to a conclusion.
Right.
So that was one thing. Another thing that I got involved with was some of the other social justice groups like APANO. So I'm on the board for the Asian Pacific American Network of Oregon. I'm on the C4
Okay.
board now. I started on the C3 board.
Right.
And APANO
You
is
said one more time. It stands for what again?
the Asian Pacific American Network of Oregon.
Okay.
And it's a social justice organization. While it is centered in the API community, the Asian Pacific Islander
Right,
community,
right.
it really is involved in social justice across the board,
Right.
with particular attention here in the Portland metropolitan area, but across the state.
Right.
So currently, I know that Apano is working very feverishly on supporting an accurate count of the census. So we've got a census that's coming up, right?
Right.
And that count is very important, that we make sure that we do not undercount people, because that will affect our representation here.
Right.
And in fact, that's one of the things. Currently, we have 5 representatives for this state. In all likelihood, we will probably gain a 6th seat in 2022 after the census count is completed.
So is that stepping into that position there where you're doing the police stuff, so you're on the panel
Mhm.
there and you're reviewing stuff, was that a learning experience?
Oh,
would you
absolutely.
say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, stepping.
Yeah, so, first of all, you go in, and most of the folks that are on the panel have some sort of a legal background. I have a legal background as well.
Right.
But what was really interesting is to see how everything works within the Portland Police Bureau, how the mechanics of it all worked, and quite frankly, sadly, I think that the standard of review that the Citizen Review Committee works under really does not provide sufficient amount of teeth for them to actually get their job done.
Okay.
And ultimately, a lot of bad acts that occur by police go without being dealt with properly.
Gotcha.
So
then, I mean, what are some ideas, I guess, of things that we could potentially do to address those issues, right?
change the standard of review for one thing.
Okay.
Secondly, I think that you really need to have a truly independent citizen review committee that has the power to enforce their decisions.
Okay.
Because basically the decisions then go up to the city council.
Right.
But that's city level stuff.
Right.
In addition to working with that, I also looked at the other side when it came for the Portland Police Bureau, and I volunteered to be on hiring committees
Okay.
for the Portland Police Bureau. And I know that some folks look at that and say, why get involved with the police at all? And I say, well, as long as we do continue to have police, we
Right.
should ensure that we at least try to get some decent police officers into
Right.
the ranks.
So vetting them.
Absolutely.
properly.
So proper vetting, ensuring that we have decent folks coming into the force.
And that seems logical. It
I would
sounds
think
like
so.
it seems like a solid approach to the situation. Approach it right at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And see how we can improve right there. So that way, when they come on, we know that they're a strong candidate, right?
Right.
That we know that they're capable of, providing policing.
Mm-hmm.
They're well trained. They understand, the rules of force. They comprehend what's going on in that space that they're conducting their work in, right?
Right.
So that seems like a logical approach.
Yeah. Now,
So-
in addition to that, I also was involved with the TriMet, with TriMet's Transit Equity Advisory Committee.
Okay.
And I sat on that. It was a board comprised of 20 different organizations that have large ridership. So I was there
Gotcha.
representing Portland Community College.
Okay.
You know, being a dean there,
Right.
and seeing that a lot of our students and a lot of our faculty and staff use TriMet to get to and from school.
Right.
We're one of the larger organizations that probably could help TriMet make sure that they aren't having disparate actions against the ridership. So what TIAC or the TriMet Equity Advisory Committee was really about was making sure that any of the major actions that TriMet conducted, well, make sure that we were looking through an equity lens and making sure that, you know, we took a look at what the impacts were on the ridership, especially with particular attention to marginalized communities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That seems like good stuff too, man.
Yeah.
So you just out here doing it. You're like,
yeah, well, that was the thing.
hey, how
I
do
mean,
I support?
and quite honestly, when I started getting involved with all of these different things and other things like the Giving Tree, which works with folks in low-income housing downtown,
Right.
there was a lot of hours after work
Yeah.
hours, but it didn't feel like work. It felt like I was engaging within my community,
Right.
that I was
Felt
actually
good.
helping to make
Yeah.
things better.
Right.
Right.
And I see. I think we met through AWAMI,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So you're over there, Supportive, which is Oregon Association of Minority and Entrepreneurs.
Yeah, Oregon Association of Minority Entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
My wife and I had a small business. It still is in existence on paper,
Yeah.
virtual, but used to be a brick and mortar digital design agency, and we were members of AWAMI.
Right.
And AWAMI is a fascinating organization.
It's amazing.
It really helps young business owners,
Right.
diverse business owners, really get an understanding of how to conduct business here within the state.
Right.
So through AWAMI, we were able to understand and navigate the state in trying to secure our emerging small business certification, our women-owned business certification, and our minority business enterprise certification.
With COVID.
With COVID, exactly. So without AWAMI, we wouldn't have known about that or how that process worked, or
Right.
you know what the benefits of that would have been. In addition to that, we secured a lot of business through that organization. So it was really a really good organization for networking.
You know,
And yeah,
I tell you, when Sam Brooks, the founder over there,
Mhm.
when he says that, everyone's in
and nobody's out.
and nobody's out.
Yep.
It resonates.
Hmm.
Like no matter where you come from, I think you can see that
Yeah.
as a community. You're
Yeah.
like, got me there, because it's
But-
so real.
But here's the thing. Everybody in, nobody out is kind of the general philosophy when it comes to my politics as well.
Right.
You know, I really believe that our government is supposed to be here to help to support all of us and
Right.
to ensure that we strengthen our communities at the local level and at the national level.
Right.
And right now, what I see is, we've got a lot of serious issues.
Right.
We've got a lot of serious issues that have not been addressed. We have a lot of issues that, quite frankly, haven't been addressed because I don't think that the folks that have been in power have the right perspective or the lens
Right.
for which to be able to see the issues that we truly face.
Do you have some examples of some issues that you
Oh,
may see?
absolutely. So
Right.
I first moved here in 2005. And the
Okay.
first thing that I noticed was our homelessness crisis. It was a
Right.
crisis then. It is a super critical crisis now.
Right.
And quite frankly, I haven't seen much in the way of action on
Mm.
trying to address that issue. And
Right.
yes, it's a complex issue, but to have no action is, to do nothing is not a
Right.
solution. We have to do something. Now, I've got some pretty serious and good ideas of what we can do.
Right.
But we've had 24 years of the same representative, and it wasn't until a couple months ago that he actually came out with anything, and it was basically a general white paper that we have a homelessness crisis. But that simply isn't enough. We
Right.
we need some bold action now.
Right,
Yeah.
because you can almost see that. You
Yeah.
don't have to.
You don't need to write a paper to see that. I mean,
Right.
that's been, the writing's been on the wall. The tents have been on the streets for over a generation.
So would you say that there's any potentially good that's maybe going on in Congress right now? That could be things that we could even grow it to be better.
With regard to homelessness?
I would say not in regards to homelessness, just in general. Like as far as like,
Yes,
what are some
I
things
see.
that
I
you
see some
the
trends.
goods? Yeah.
So I see a couple of different trends. One is starting, like I said, in 2015, Bernie Sanders kind of
Right.
electrified and inspired and activated a lot of folks, not just me.
Right.
And in turn, the next cycle, we
Yeah.
had folks like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez that ran
Right.
and
Okay.
did the impossible, right? They said it was impossible. And, you know, we have members of Congress that have been in for 20, 30, 40
Right.
years that what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, what these freshman candidates are Congress members of Congress have done in their first year and a half,
Right.
they have done so much more than a lot of our members of Congress have done in 20,
Yeah.
30, 40 years tenure.
Are you
So-
familiar with John C. Maxwell?
John C. Maxwell, no.
Yeah, he's a you might call him a world leader because
Okay.
he's a, I would say not a motivational speaker, but he teaches leadership concepts.
Mhm.
And one of the concepts, he has a book. I want to say it's like 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership.
Okay.
And one of the concepts in there is like one of the laws is the law of the lid.
The
And
law of the lid.
the law of the lid.
Okay.
And essentially what he's saying is that an individual can only take it as far as they're capable of seeing it,
Mhm.
as far as their mind can visualize or comprehend.
Well,
And
that
then
makes sense.
And then at some point, so they'll hit their lid.
Mhm.
They're going to go as big and as grandiose as they can go.
Mhm.
And they hit the lid. Boom, boom, boom. And sometimes it takes a new set of eyes to come in and take it to that next level. And I feel like that's what that is.
Yeah.
I feel like it's that new set of eyes.
Well, that's what I see. You're talking about trends in Congress. That's one of the things I see.
Yeah.
Is in 2018 we had a field of folks that were coming from different perspectives, from different backgrounds, from different experiences. And at first, we had a lot of the older, stodgier, traditional members of Congress looking down their noses at these new members. They looked at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Oh, this bartender, she
Right.
thinks she can do something, and now they're taking serious notice. This cycle, we have over 120 progressives from all walks of life running around this country, trying to represent the people. And I think that trend is going to continue forward. I think that people have been emboldened. They have been inspired by Bernie. They've been inspired by AOC. They've been inspired by Rashida and Ilhan to do this.
Right.
And quite frankly, I think we need this.
Correct.
We need to diversify our thoughts, opinions, and ideas in order to get to workable solutions. Because
Right.
if we're all cut from the same cloth, if we're all multimillionaires, going to the same clubs, you're not gonna get there, because, like you said,
Right.
they're gonna get to a point where your ideas, your vision, your thoughts, they cannot go any further.
Complacency.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see, and I think about like technology, being in the communication era.
Mhm.
I feel like it's because we have these platforms now, whereas we didn't have those platforms.
Mhm.
Those platforms weren't even an option. So now when you have an individual like Bernie Sanders who decides to, run for presidency and then goes out there and does these rallies,
Right.
like all of a sudden, if somebody's speaking genuine truth,
They're gonna
It's
get an
gonna-
audience.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna carry, and
Despite
it's
despite the blackout from the mainstream media.
correct.
Despite it.
Yeah, because now we have a videotape or a video recorder in our pocket that
Mhm.
can stream it around the world.
Yes. Yes.
So you don't get to hide that anymore.
Well, they still
you
do.
know?
They still hide it and stifle it and try to suppress it as much as possible.
Right.
But one of the things that technology has done is it has democratized or made our democracy more democratic. It has provided new platforms, free platforms for folks to speak. I mean, we're going to be doing this podcast right here, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's, I mean, it's hopeful, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we see that and we see light. We see opportunities. We
Right.
see space, opportunities for growth and expansion and new ideas being accepted now. And it takes a fight, right? It takes a grind, and it takes ambition, and it takes somebody like yourself that's willing to step up and say, you know, I will assume responsibility for this.
Well, I got to tell you, this is no picnic.
Yeah.
No, seriously. For
Day
me,
to day.
For me, first of all, I had to take some serious decisions here. I had to step down from my job in order to make this run.
Right.
What running for office is, it is a luxury for the 1%. It is a luxury for the wealthy.
Right.
For us mere mortals, we have to take some serious considerations. For me,
Yeah.
I was a dean at a community college.
Right.
It's a state employed position. I spoke with the human resources department. I spoke with the lawyers, and they basically said you can either run for office or you can be a dean.
Right.
And for me and my family, we made that decision. It's some people say it's ridiculous, but what I say is ridiculous is what is going, if you look down the road,
Right.
what is ridiculous is not having a planet to live on.
Right.
What is ridiculous is having political and social instability from an immense wealth gap. What is ridiculous is the trillions of dollars that we've been spending on endless war, killing millions of people around the world. And this is going to continue so long as we continue to send the same folks to office to do
Right.
the same thing. So I'm standing up as one of us to represent all of us. I'm standing up to try to change the course in the direction, the trajectory that this country is going in. Because quite frankly, I see a lot of bad outcomes coming if we do not change our ways. We have a climate crisis where we have a continent that is burning just on down under, and it's barely makes a blip on the news.
Right.
Less than 5-10 seconds is dedicated to it on the news, and we're talking about 500 million to 1 billion animals have died. We've got smoke that has come across the Pacific Ocean to Chile and Argentina. This is bigger than the fires in Brazil. This is bigger than the fires that we've had up in North America. And I don't know if you recall, 2 years ago, I was putting a face mask on my daughter from the wildfires that we had here with the Eagle Creek complex, right?
Right.
And yeah, sure, people want to say it's man-made, but all of our fires are man-made because of the incredible abuse and disrespect that we've had for for not only our country but for our planet.
Right.
Yeah.
So then it's pretty clear to see that that's ridiculous.
That is
accepting
ridiculous.
that. Yeah.
So yeah, my family has made some really serious sacrifices
Right.
in order to put this run forward, and the other sacrifice is we're not doing a traditional campaign. We're not taking corporate money.
Right.
Our opponent takes over 65% of his funds come from corporations. 100% of our funds have come from the people, because we want to represent
the people.
Right? Yeah.
Makes sense. I mean, it seems like, once again, it seems logical. It seems like a good approach. And so I think something that we might want to dive into a little bit is like your background, right? Because me just knowing you a little bit is you have a military background.
I do.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
Where was your time? When did you serve in the military? What
I'm
did you do
I'm going to do a step further than that. So
Okay.
I come from a military family. My wife comes from a military family.
Okay.
My father signed up right after high school in 1970 during the middle of the Vietnam War.
Okay.
Now, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
He was a black man in St. Louis, North County, St. Louis, grew up in poverty. Really, there was no opportunity for him. He could either wait for his draft card number to be called and know that he was going to go to Vietnam, or he could sign up for the military and hope that, he had a better outcome.
Right.
And ultimately, he made that rational choice. And they sent him to mechanic school and eventually to Korea, which is why I'm here.
Gotcha.
Okay. So he served in the military. He was a mechanic. My wife, her father was an artillery officer in the Army as well. We're all an Army, all Army family.
Right.
Her side of the family, my wife and her dad were both officers. She was an officer. She served in Korea, and she also served in a combat support hospital in Mosul, Iraq. She did her time overseas. For me, I signed up like many people sign up because they want to talk about our military being an all-volunteer military. It really isn't. It's a military of the poor. It's a military of the marginalized. You know, for me,
Yeah.
I signed up because of my school loans. I was freaking out about my school loans, and one day I found myself in front of a recruiter's office. Took the ASVAB, scored 99%, which qualified me to do anything. So I said, you know, I tried a whole bunch of different MOSs, and they were like, oh, they're all full. What's open? Infantry, artillery, scout, combat arms. All the combat arms are open all day, all the time.
Right.
They knew they had my number. They knew that I had a whole bunch of school loans. They knew that, you know, I was freaking out about all of those things. So they knew they had me. So
Right.
I signed up for infantry, air assault, ranger school. And while I was in basic training, I got selected to go to the honor guard. So I was stationed at Arlington National Cemetery. I was stationed at Fort Myer. So I did my entire service at Arlington National Cemetery, where I did funerals and ceremonies as part of a select infantry unit there, and got to learn to ride horses while I was there. But yeah, so for me, that was my military service, and my, you know, my whole family, both sides, my wife's side and my side, have been military.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you that having served in the military, one of the things that I am pretty adamant about is the abuse of our military. You know, it's called the Defense Department. It's not the Offense Department. Yet, if you look at our foreign policy over the last 100 years, our foreign policy has been dictated in order to the benefit of the very select few at the very top. It's been market driven. It's been for enriching a select few people while employing our military around the world. So, you know, we talk about this thing with Iran recently.
Right.
If you look at our history with Iran, back in the 1950s, Iran was one of the first places that we did, you know, regime change, peacetime regime change, where we sent the CIA in there to overthrow the government because we wanted to ensure that we could continue supplying oil to our American companies and our British companies, because the Iranians wanted to nationalize their oil. You know, their natural resources, they were going to nationalize it instead of allowing our private companies to continue to profit off of that. Same thing in Guatemala during the same time. We also did regime change down there because United Fruit didn't like the labor strikes that were going on down there. And so they wanted to increase their profits and control the labor, so they overthrew the government down there and installed a military dictatorship. Now, when you look at the vast amount of money that we spend on the military, I mean, the last 20 years of war, we spend almost $7 trillion.
Right.
That's money that could have been used to rebuild our roads, to rebuild our bridges, to overhaul and rebuild the infrastructure of our educational systems, pay for universal health care, pay for free college for all. A lot of good could have been done for the people here,
Right.
instead of being wasted. But somebody made a profit on it. I mean, when we assassinated that Iranian military leader, whose stocks went up? Raytheon stocks went up. All the military industrial stocks go up. So those folks made money. Meanwhile, civilians around the world die. Meanwhile, we put our military in harm's way. When I was a kid,
Right.
I remember, you know, learning geography, because when you're a military brat, you learn geography real quick. When there's a unrest somewhere, you're wondering if your dad or your mom's going to be going there.
Deployed. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you said something there early on in that, talking about the military, you know, where you had said that, you know, it's the lower, I don't know if your exact words were, but
Marginalized
the lower class,
yeah. Working
you know,
class folks are comprise the
and
military.
that's a hard conversation to have. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
in general, but it's the reality of it is so true. You know what I'm saying? Like
Well,
it's you can look at it and see it.
I just remember when we were going through the Gulf Wars and stuff, and
Yeah.
people were slapping those yellow ribbons on the back of their SUVs, and it was like,
Yeah.
thank you for your service, or I support the troops. Well, you supported the troops by putting a dollar sticker on the back of your, on the back of your SUV, but that's not the sacrifice that the poor,
Right.
the working class folks are doing.
Right.
They're putting their bodies and their lives on the line.
So with the AGC, the Associated General Contractors, I do veterans outreach there, and so I chair the position there with the workforce development. And when I was asked to do that, I said, well, I'll come, meet the committee, and I'll see how I feel about it. And I'm pretty much, I believe I'm in. Let's see. And one of the things was they were talking about they wanted to get the veterans jobs,
right?
With companies, and the thing I kept hearing was, well, we support veterans. We support veterans. And so being a veteran myself, I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean? You support veterans because you gave them a job?
Yeah.
You're supporting them? No, that's not support. That's a job. You gave that support to the community as well. You know what I'm saying? Have you taken the time to understand what a veteran is? It's an individual. It's a human being, who's had a different experience than you.
Right.
And do you know what that experience is?
Probably not. I mean, when less than 1% of the American population serves.
Right. Yeah. It's more than just a Hollywood soldier.
No.
I mean, in respect to the individuals and the stories we wrote about, yes, there are Hollywood soldiers.
What branch were you in?
I was in the United States Army.
Okay.
I was a military police officer.
Okay.
Served 6 years.
Awesome.
And
no, I just remember, down in Benning during basic training, being 11 Bravo and all, we get in the mess hall, and I was a poor soldier myself, but there were so many soldiers that were coming from way worse backgrounds and situations than I was coming from.
Right.
And I remember sitting in the mess hall like, I don't know, this is kind of gross, this food sucks.
Yeah.
And they're just happy as clams because it's just like, man, I got a 3-square meal,
Right.
And then I remember one instance where soldier comes and he's got one of the slices of white bread, right? And he pours sugar on it, folds it over, and starts eating it. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, what is that? He goes, and he looks at me like I'm stupid, and he says, well, that's a sugar sandwich. Like, don't you know? That's what you grew up with. That's what he grew up with, And that particular soldier came from Mississippi, from a house that did not have working electricity or plumbing. And this was 1998.
So it's almost like gladiators.
Yeah.
Like modern day gladiators.
Yeah.
You got to sacrifice your life and your existence to hopefully, potentially have an opportunity to become better.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess today when I look, I mean, my life's better.
Well, don't get me wrong. I got a lot of discipline out of the military.
Right.
I walked into the military pretty undisciplined, unruly, and I walked out of there.
Better man.
Yeah, better man.
Yeah. So
no,
okay.
I mean, but that being said, I mean, when we talk about folks that are trying to make it, trying to just get an education, they shouldn't have to make that choice of serving in the military in order to get an education. That's you serve in the military if you want to serve in the military, if that's the direction that you want to go, but it shouldn't be something that is required in order for you to get ahead in life. It's a trade-off that the wealthy don't have to worry about, or the upper middle class don't have to worry about, and it's just not fair. It's not fair for the poor, not fair for the working class.
I agree. It seems like there's opportunity there.
Mm-hmm.
So to shift a little bit, looking forward to 2020, what's something that you see that excites you?
Oh, I am excited by really, I got to say, I'm excited by the enthusiasm that I see, that people are starting to get engaged.
Okay.
civically on all levels of government and outside of government. Because, like I said, I got involved with the Portland chapter of the DSA. I got involved with the Democrats in 2015, 2016. But aside from that, people have been getting involved with so many different civic organizations and organizations that are focused on very specific things. So, like tonight, I was at an organization that is trying to get money out of politics, right? They're seeing, oh, you know what? The root of all of our issues has been the money in politics. Let's do something about that. Let's get together and let's try to figure this one out. Another group is working and voicing their opinions and trying to fight the fight in order to ensure that we're going to have a planet to live on. That are going to do everything they can to protect the planet. And I see the enthusiasm of people from all walks of life getting involved, saying, you know, something's got to give. We can't just depend on our elected officials to do it because obviously they're not doing it. And, you know, if we can't change them and if we can't elect new people to replace them, well, we're going to have to do something else. So what I have been excited about is seeing that people are getting off their butts and actually starting to do stuff. Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm
Get
one of
active.
them. I mean, quite frankly, I'm one of them because in 2015, pre-2015, I wasn't doing anything either. And, you know, like I said, I got ignited by one candidate.
Right.
And from there, spawned to do a lot of different things and try to get involved in a lot of different things. Spread myself really thin, retracted, and try to focus again thereafter. But I think that folks are starting to wake up and seeing that all is not right with the world, and if we don't do something, and we're the ones that got to do it, you know, we're looking at hard times to come.
So how's that at home? I mean, how's that like? I mean, making that change, because clearly, like as a dean, right? You're pretty set, right? You probably have like this routine, you know, everyday process you go through, and then now it's chaos.
It is complete chaos. Every day is something new. You know, it is really stressful at times, especially when there are times when there's not a whole lot of contributions coming in, support, but other times there are. And to have to work and try to figure it out on the fly is something, because I'm not a professional politician, you know. Right. I'm just a regular Joe trying to stand up for the rest of us regular Joes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this has been a great interview. And
appreciate it.
I want to give you the floor here to talk to the people.
Yeah.
So there's a camera here. There's a camera there. This one's the one that's on right now.
Yeah.
But just what would you say, you know, as you're running for Congress here? Mm-hmm. What would you say to the people?
Sure. Well, this camera right here.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Like I said at the beginning of this conversation, I'm not running against someone. I'm running for our future. I believe that we need citizen representatives who know the struggle, who won't take corporate contributions, who will truly represent and fight for the people. We have a serious amount of different crises that are going on, and it's not like they just happened yesterday. These things have been going on for years. We have a climate crisis that has been a crisis for over 40 years. We have a homelessness crisis that has been a crisis for over 20 years. You know, we have the lack of living wages, the lack of affordable housing, the lack of living wages. The minimum wage has remained flat for 40 years. The lack of affordable housing. We have an immense wealth gap that is completely unsustainable. And so long as we have a government that is a government of the plutocrats, you know, the one percenters, nothing's going to change. We need citizen representatives. We need people who understand and know the struggle. We need regular everyday Joes to go out there to help us all, because quite frankly, you need to have perspective. You need to understand the struggles. You need to know, you know, the cost of a gallon of milk, the cost of a gallon of gas, and I think that it's time that we have representatives, one of us. So I'm asking for folks to take a good hard look at our campaign to see what we offer. You can find more information at albertlee2020.com.
Hey.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
You heard it here, folks, on We the People, an American pod show. It was great. Keep rocking the free world. We're out.
Thank you.